Do you know what's good about that photograph? You know what's bad about that photograph? Today we're talking about sports photojournalism. I'm Kenny Smith, the Student Media Advisor in the Journalism and Mass Communication Department at Samford University. Every day I get to work with great students on projects like the award-winning Samford Crimson, our campus-wide weekly newspaper, The Local, an award-winning general interest magazine that's published twice a year, and the Samford News Network, which is our televised news program. Before we get into the topic at hand, sports photojournalism, I want to tell you just a bit about our program. In journalism and mass communication, our students focus on print and online journalism, broadcast media, public relations, and advertising. We offer minors in film production and sports media, and our students interested in sports get to work alongside local media and ESPN pros that cover Samford athletics. First, a few tips. Go to the sport early. Shoot the players warming up. Get your close-ups now. It's a great time to get an understanding of the settings you'll need for the event. You should already know how to use your equipment, but practice with your settings, especially if you're shooting manually, if you're shooting indoors, or if you're shooting at night. We'll talk about that a bit in a second. Second, talk to a coach or trainer from both teams, your team and the other side too. You're trying to find out which athletes are liable to have a great game. After you've gotten an idea of who to watch for and who to shoot on both teams, see if you can find the rosters. If you can't pick one up to carry back home to the newsroom, just take a photo of each roster. Players have numbers on the uniforms. It's going to be a great reference for you later. Another great reference is the scoreboard. Shoot it a lot. It's a great way to just help you keep a flow of when in the game this thing happened. Was there a huge touchdown throw? Take a scoreboard shot right after that. You'll know the score and the quarter and the clock. Did your team's shortstop just hit a clutch triple? Was that the fourth or was that the fifth inning? That scoreboard shot will tell you. Understanding the flow of the sport you're covering means an awful lot to your photography. You want shots of people coming to you, not to the backs of their head. So at football games, you're always hustling toward the end zone where the ball is headed. You want faces. If you're shooting basketball, you might swap back and forth from end to end during timeouts or when the team swaps sides. Remember, shoot both teams. This will give you shots of your team on offense. It'll also give you shots of your team on defense. If you're shooting baseball or softball, for example, get a few nice shots of the pitcher, and then remember to move around to get batters on both sides of the plate. For players in the field, get as close to them as you can and shoot a lot. If you don't know how to shoot the sport you've been assigned to, ask. I've never covered track and field, for example, so if I got that assignment, I'd ask the coach for advice. Here's what I need, coach. Where's a good place to get for this sport? What about for that event? Where's the drama unfolding in this particular contest? Where's the game decided? I'd ask people on the team, too. Ask a lot of questions, you will get a lot of answers. So let's look at some photographs. And don't worry, we can make fun of these. I shot all of these. I'm going to make fun of them, and you can too. This is the first one I showed you. It's from the Army-Navy game a few years ago. Very dramatic moment. The Navy player jumping from the 2-yard line to score. Go Navy, beat Army. It's a great moment in the game. It's not a very good photograph because I'm so far away. I'm literally across the football field. So not the best shot we could ever have there. What we want to do is get tighter as photojournalists and close to the action as we can get. Obviously, you can't get on the field. You don't want to get in the way of the coaches or the players. There's safety issues. You don't want to get in trouble with the officials of the game. But use your zoom lenses if you can. Walk physically as close as you can to get shots like this. This is a Samford football game. The defender there, the Samford player in the dark blue, making a tackle in the backfield. Great play there. Not a bad shot. It's a little tighter composition than the previous one. But we can do better because we also want to see not just tight compositions, we also want to see the face of the players. This is a little hard in some sports, particularly when there's long shadows. Like we can just see the Samford hero here because of the shadows in his face mask, but we've got a nice shot of him running and, of course, the defender chasing after him. This is a better shot. An Air Force quarterback looking to throw, scrambling around in the backfield. I've cut him off at the waist, but that's okay here in this particular instance because I've got a nice tight composition. I've left some negative space over to the right so we can follow his eyes, and his eyes are great in this shot. We know where he's looking to find that receiver that's opened. Here's a Samford quarterback. I was hustling from one end zone to the other, like I mentioned, and just happened to look up as this play was unfolding, and it looks like he's throwing the ball right at me. It actually is not. It's an illusion of the angle that I'm standing at, but every time I see the picture, I want to throw my hands up and try and catch this football. Just a great shot, good timing in the sense of happened to be at the right place at the right time, but I've got his face, which is key. We can see his eyes. It's a great thing. He's in focus. It's a nice tight composition of just the quarterback, and we have the ball. We always want the implement of the sport. So if it's football, obviously, you'll need the football. Baseball, you'll want a baseball, for example. If you're shooting tennis, you need a racket and a tennis ball. But having the ball itself is not always a guarantee of a great shot. For instance, there are 4 people in this photograph, 3 players and the umpire. We see 2 faces. So why do we see the pitcher? This is a standard throwback over to first, try to catch the guy, keep him from stealing second. We see the baseball right in the center of the frame, but it's a very wide composition. If you're shooting a typical newspaper, shooting a typical web sort of photograph here, that composition might not serve your purposes. You want a tighter framed shot. This one's a little bit better in terms of the tightness of the composition. The batter singling to left field here. We've actually got the catcher's mitt over on the right margin, which I think is kind of cool myself, but opinions will vary on that a little bit. Everyone pretty much agrees, though, it's not a very good shot because we don't see a lot of the batter's face, and that would be a problem for us here. Again, with the faces. An Arkansas pitcher is having a tough day. He's a very good pitcher, but it's just not working for him that day. He's coming out. The manager's coming to get him. You can see it in the body language. He's not pleased with his performance. He wants to stay in the game. You know that, but it's hard to tell that because of his baseball cap. We want to see faces, even in those shots. Here's a Baltimore Orioles pitcher. And when I said take several photographs of pictures, this is what I mean. The pitch in softball and in baseball is a very predictable part of the game. It comes down to an anticipation shot. I'd like to get a couple of shots, one with the ball still in the pitcher's hand, one with the ball just coming off out of the fingers of each pitcher, and one with the ball leaving the mound or leaving the circle, as is the case here. If I've got each of those shots for each pitcher that plays today, and that means, when the relief pitchers come in, that means for both teams, then I've given my editors plenty of opportunities to tell the kind of story they need based on how the rest of the game unfolds. So make sure you get several good shots of each of the pitchers you see when you're at the park. Nice basketball shot here. There's a little focal length problem, but we've got 3 people. We've got the ball. We've got 3 faces, great expressions. We've got the goal above him. The guy in white here is driving to the basket, and the guys in red are trying to keep him away. But it is a bit wide, so we want to see if we can get our focal attention of our audience on just the primary elements that matter. That one's got a lot going on. This one is a bit better in the sense that it's not as wide, but we've gone crazy the other direction. Look how tightly we've cropped that. The guy in white can't score points because I've cut his leg off. And the guy in blue, he's got an even worse problem. I've left half of his body somewhere on the editing room floor, right? How can you defend if you don't have half yourself there? Be careful of the margins. Don't go too crazy with the editing. Not everything that happens at the game is going to be on the court or on the field. This is a high school state championship, and this is the star player number 3. She's just come off at the end of the game. They're at the free throw line, and she's just looked up at the scoreboard and realized we've won the state championship. Pretty cool moment there, and you see other people on the sideline for her team crying as well. It's a really cool little shot that didn't happen on the court. You've got to keep your eyes on the court, but also on other things too. Incidentally, that young woman right there, number 3, went on to play basketball at Samford. She had a great career, and this is Samford in their first NCAA women's basketball tournament. And they were playing Florida State here, but not a very good tournament. Florida State was quite good, and they were a very good defensive team, and they didn't get a lot of great looks to Samford, and I didn't get a lot of great looks for my audience with this photograph because of all these people in the foreground. It's very busy. They're blurry, and I can't see number 24, who's the young woman with the ball, who is my focal point, because I've got all these people in the foreground. We want clean, crisp pictures at all chances if we can get them. Here's a nice high school basketball moment, almost as good as the dunk, the rejection play, right? The guy in blue is driving to the hoop. The guy in white says, not today. That ball gets swatted into the next county. By the way, that guy in white's now in the NBA. I shot him in high school. Pretty cool moment, huh? Gymnastics. I'd never shot gymnastics before, and the arenas are a bit darker, and this is why I say go early so you can figure out your settings. I had a lot of blurry people here. Her face is in pretty good shape. Her hands are crisply in focus, but look at her toes. They're pointed, which is great for gymnastics, but they're blurry, which is bad for me. So until I could figure out my shutter speeds, I ended up taking a lot of pictures like this. Things around the event, the intense concentration before this person went on the balance beam. This is actually a planned moment with her head on the floor routine. Don't panic, she meant to do this. I saw this in warm-ups. This was totally what she meant to do here. But it's a pause in the action so I could get a nice crisper shot without blurry toes and whatnot, and another one of those on the floor too. If you're learning new equipment, if you're learning your settings, I would suggest going to a high school game, or going to a children's game rather. So I'm at the park, and these kids playing soccer. I love this picture because the guy in red, no feet on the ground, the ball's off the ground. The guy in white's just got his toes on the ground. He's coming in for a nice slide tackle here. This is a great place to learn a new sport, to learn how to photograph a sport when you're shooting kids, or also to learn new equipment that you might be using, simply because oftentimes these guys are running a little bit slower than the people who are playing the high school game, the college game, and certainly the professional game. It just gives you a bit more time to think and react and make some errors and learn lessons from it. So if you're not familiar with the short sports you've got to go shoot, or if you're learning new gear, see if you can find the little kids playing, or your brothers and sisters in the Little League. Good opportunity right there, right? Keep your eye on action that's not going on the field. I think we touched on this a bit, but again, this is a minor league game. Kids trying to get on the field. Dad's trying to keep them off the field. Foul ball comes over to number 30. He walks it down to the kid. Great little piece of the game that has nothing to do with the sport whatsoever. Just a piece of Americana. Father, dad, son, great memory. And I actually sold this photograph to ESPN just because I happened to be watching stuff that wasn't going on the field that day. So keep an eye on those things. For example, here's the Samford mascot, we're Bulldogs, on the right, and the Georgia mascot, also Bulldogs, on the left. These two don't get together very often, and you can see why the Georgia Bulldog is very jealous of the Samford Bulldog. But a cool little moment when they do get together. Cheerleaders, they're always great for opportunities to give pep and atmosphere to the game. Also, people in the crowd, people doing silly things, are they wearing face paint, that sort of thing. You have a principal or someone at your school, in your community, that knows everybody. Find them at the game. Ask them who's at the park that needs to be seen today. Okay? I've met several college and professional coaches at games this way, and I met this guy who was just at a football game at the college level to watch a game, but he was on his way to getting the Congressional Medal of Honor just because I asked, who's here today? I got to meet him, shake his hand, talk to him, got a story, got a cool photograph as well. So ask around, who's here today? And be on the lookout for people like this. They don't normally look like this, these guys, I don't think, but they certainly are colorful, are they not? Finally, you want to make sure you stay until the end of the game. You never know the finish, and you'll never be able to reproduce the miracle finish. Plus, you can't get any great celebration shots if you're already in the car or you're heading home. When you do get home, start to piece together the important photographs. As you do this, write down your big impressions. All of this, rosters, scoreboards, and understanding of what happened in the game, all of that is helping you fulfill one of the most important elements of a photograph. I always tell young photogs, your job is not done until you've brought back the information we need to be able to tell this story. That is what we're after. Thanks for listening today. I hope there's been something helpful in here for you. You've seen links to our Twitter and Instagram accounts on the bottom of the screen. We'd also encourage you to look up the university's website as well. You can find that at samford.edu. And if you have questions for us that we can try to answer in the future in our next video series, please let me know. Until then, great riding, great shooting, and go tell some great stories. I'm Kenny Smith.